Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another fantastic episode on the Unleashing Potentials podcast. Joining me today is fellow Canadian, Reese. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for coming on the podcast. I appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you so much for allowing me on your platform. It's an honor to be here.
You're welcome. So, Reese, you're Canadian. I'm Canadian. Where in Canada are you?
I am in Vancouver, BC.
Nice. You know, I've been to Vancouver. Um, it doesn't get as cold as, Alberta, Calgary. What do you like about it?
For me, it's not just the slightly warmer climate, it's that we're very coastal in the fact that it's kind of a rainforest year round.
Mm.
And for me, I like the rain. It brings me like deep comfort. So those cloudy days are just days where I dive into creativity instead of depression.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, there's something about the rain that at times I can't describe how it makes me feel, but I'm happy we can agree on how it makes you feel as well. Yeah, except it's cold here. The rain, it's really cold here versus a warmer climate.
Exactly. Like we still get the bone chill out here, but we don't see -60.
I know it's really bad here, really, really bad. Yeah, yeah. So, Reese, can you tell us who you are and what you do?
Well, I am Reese Sabatini-Blake, a author, speaker, and holistic mental health professional. I primarily work with high achieving women to overcome their overwhelm and exhaustion without the use of drugs or pharmaceuticals.
Oh, I like without the drug part. That's awesome.
Right? Like
Yeah, yeah, I love
med
that.
and
Yeah.
and exactly, like medication can be very helpful and it has its applications. But
Mhm.
there are so many people that they realize that eventually medication is just a band-aid. Eventually your body acclimates and you need to try something else. Why not just learn the tools that you need to be
Yeah.
happy and healthy in every situation to the
Mhm.
best of your ability?
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I definitely agree. So what got you into the work that you're doing?
Honestly, I have to say life path.
Mm.
I I grew up in interesting ways, and
Do tell.
and I mean from a lifelong trauma journey to like starting to work in even a peer support role as only a teenager when I first got my assist training at 15 to because I had suicidal friends and I knew I'm like there needs
Mhm.
to be someone on your level in your life
Mhm.
that's looking out for you and can see the signs when you're about to jump, metaphorically.
Yeah.
And and from there it just continued. And when I got offered to do my traditional training in Indigenous medicine, I jumped at the opportunity because after teenage paralysis at 16, I wasn't going to med school.
Mhm.
Like, sure, I recovered, but it wasn't like, okay, let's dedicate 7 years to this. Like, no, let's do this training gradually over a 13-year period and
Mhm.
learn how to manage all of this with a combination of traditional practices and then like our modern like Freudian psychology. Like it's a beautiful combination that took over a decade of training to get to.
Yeah, 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 I agree. Thank you so much for sharing. I have so much respect for everybody, but particularly those who work with people like me, people you may know with mental health diagnosis. Um, yeah, I think those conversations, even this interview, I hope we keep having it over and over and talk about those situations that people face because there's so much shame and guilt tied to it. I'm speaking from experience, okay?
Mhm.
I'm diagnosed. I'm not ashamed of sharing it with the world anymore because I don't care how people judge, why they judge, and what they do. In your experience, what are some changes that should be taking place when it comes to how we approach, people with mental health diagnosis?
Well, I would say even when someone is first experiencing like the overwhelm of what looks like depression,
Mm,
instead of just putting them on a medication, why don't you see what's going on in their life? Because if there is an actual cause and effect, it's not depression.
mhm.
It's just a hard life period. Or, oh, grandma died and you've been sad for a year. That's reasonable. Let's give you the tools to help you through it instead of a pill to numb you out from your experiences.
Yeah, 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 I agree. I'm on pills, right? And if I were to try to get off them, I probably would either be put in a psych ward or get re-evaluated because I find that it's very hard for people to advocate
Mhm.
for what they need. I still struggle with that, but it's very hard.
Exactly. Advocacy for yourself is incredibly difficult, like no matter the age. And especially in Canada, where our system puts a label on you once and they're actually never open to reevaluation.
Yeah, yeah.
It's no, this is your label for life. You wear it.
Hmm.
Well, what if the treatment and the drugs didn't work? And clearly that's not your diagnosis. Well, no, still it is because there's no effort up here given the exhaustion and the overwhelm of a crumbling like healthcare and mental health system.
Yeah, yeah. And the label is very, very damaging.
Exactly.
Very, very. I know in my situation, all they have to do is look at what happened, I don't know, full 7, 6, 8 years ago,
Mhm.
and therefore that's who I am. Yeah, yeah,
Exactly. And that is another one of the like large systemic flaws in the way we deal with it right now
yeah.
is that we just look at the person as if they are that diagnosis or string of diagnoses
Mhm.
instead of, okay, this is what you're going through. Like, let's look at the root. And that is my entire approach. It's let's get to the root
Mhm.
because if you can heal the root problem or trauma, however it came to be, generally the symptoms drop off.
Yeah, yeah,
And while you have the learned tools, you don't need them as much because the reduced impact is so positive to the individual that, well, yes, I have this, but it's better managed because we're actually working on the root cause instead of just the symptomology.
yeah, I agree. Yeah. Give us some example of your process of how you get to the root of the root. I find the more roots there are, the more roots I find. How do you
Right?
do that?
Well, the root of the root, it depends on where the person is in their journey, but it can be from initial assessment to looking at every area of their life and starting there with well, how do you feel in each category? Like your mental, your physical, your spiritual, your emotional. And I added an additional to the Indigenous medicine wheel of sexuality and not being the sex that you're having. Well, yes, we want you to get laid and lower your stress levels. We're talking about like how you experience the world, like your connection to your body, yourself, and your senses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And even just getting a person to label each one of those categories 1 to 10. It
Hmm.
gives you a really good initial starting point where from there, if a person can't pinpoint it, we can go into different meditations and breathing techniques, or even forms of art or music therapy that just get it out of a person
Hmm.
where they have the realizations of this is the exact point that made me feel that way.
Hmm.
Let's work on this. And I really like the drug free, like subconscious meditations because they bring it out almost instantaneously.
Yeah.
But that work can also be incredibly intense if the person doesn't have the proper supports outside of a session.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Like when I do those with someone, I say like for the next 72 hours, message me when you need to. Some of this might get intense. And that's where I follow like more of a coaching model in that no, keep me in your pocket. Use me as you need to, because there are going to be moments where like maybe you start having flashbacks again and you realize that your brain tucked away a core like root trauma for your own survival and now you have to work through it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you kind of stay with whoever you're working with. I find that not every coach does it, not everybody does it, but once they give the people or person the tools that they need, they just be like, you're good, right? What about asking them to come back to have their an assessment of some kind to see how it works for them? Yeah. Yeah.
And exactly, like I definitely focus on the I'm just a guide.
Mm,
Like lots of people in the coaching or the mental health, or even if you are more like woo woo and they call themselves healers,
mm,
we're just the conduit. I'm just the person that's here to hold your hand through the process. I'm not a magician. I'm not Hermione.
mm.
I'm just here to guide you through this dark tunnel and get you
Mhm.
back to your best self. It's not about me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I love that you talked about the medicine wheel. This is mind-blowing that you're talking about it because I'm reading a book on the medicine wheel and I paint. So I just recently painted the medicine wheel. And I don't know, I love it. It,
Right?
it makes sense.
Well, and there are so many different layers to those teachings. Like that, some elders go into like each section being a different quadrant of our life stages,
Mhm,
and I think that that's really cool because if you look at each tribe, we all associate different animals with different sections,
mhm,
and it's just really neat how like that was originally more like the tribes of what is now the states that used it, but now all of North America has adopted it and morphed it in its own ways. But I to stay true to those teachings, like I incorporated into my initial assessment. It's like,
mhm.
no, let's actually look at this holistically instead of misusing the term holistic to just mean natural.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I think most people they misunderstand what holistic really mean, even though
Yeah.
they haven't tried it. What does it mean to you?
Well, for me, and especially in a mental health space, it's just looking at every single possible contributing factor.
Mm,
Like, if I've given you all the tools to help reduce your anxiety and you're trying them, you're using them, and you're not seeing the effects, well, why don't we look at your sleep, what you're eating, the like herbs or the type of caffeine that you're ingesting? Because even
mhm,
the amount of coffee you drink will naturally give you anxiety. But if you're okay not feeling that rush of caffeine in the morning,
mhm,
then I would advise you to switch to even like a super cheap commercial grade green tea, where you still get the caffeine, but you're getting the calming anti anxiety effects of L-theanine,
mhm,
which is
mhm.
completely natural, but it's just in the herb.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's been so many debates, research, and I don't know what else people are doing when it comes to caffeine and the impact on the psyche, the body. I don't know. What have you heard? What's been tossing around you've heard?
Well, you hear it all. You hear that it's the worst thing for you. And then you look at people with neurodiversity and how,
Mm,
like, or even traumatic brain injuries, and how caffeine, the stimulant, causes like an almost reverse reaction and actually induces a calming effect.
mm,
And
mm.
It really depends each individual, like how caffeine's going to react in your body. I have friends that have already gone through menopause that their whole life you give them a sip of coffee and like they are a jumping bean. And I'm like, girl, what is wrong with you? Calm down. You were grown. And then meanwhile, like I can throw back two monsters and I will start like dancing around a room, but I'm so chill and you can see it visually. No, Reese is
Mhm.
just in the calm zone now. Let Reese be.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me more of your study when it comes to Indigenous study and anything else you'd like to share.
Oh, it was so much work one on one with elders and taking workshops and
Mhm,
even just the continued support of having like mentors that said, hey, I want you to go research this thing, go learn everything you can, and come back to me with your findings.
mhm,
And from the one-on-one to the guided research to even just like growing up in my culture in the modern world off reserve, like that was an incredible experience to even just shortly after the end of residential schools in Canada, which unfortunately was in my lifetime,
mhm.
to be able to grow up in the culture off reserve was beautiful. Because knowing that there are so many other harmonious ways that existed before the last couple hundred years of what is called modern medicine, when really it's a brand new thing that isn't exactly tried and true.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing. I've also been learning about residential school, and yeah, I go to the library quite a bit. I just feel a very deep soul connection to Indigenous people and to what they've been through, what they continue to go through, and how strong, mighty, powerful that they are, that they're fighters and they keep fighting for what's right, what needs to be done. And I've known and I have many Indigenous friends, and I always tell them I'm an ally. I have a podcast. I will share whatever you want me to share. So it's an honor to talk to you, to talk about those hard topics that needs to be talked about, because I find you know, any types of racism, look at my skin color, I've experienced it, all of
Yeah,
it,
exactly.
is that we don't talk about it. And the less we don't talk about it, the worse it gets. So I'm here
Well,
to
it
listen.
and thank you for that
Mhm.
because like we're all on the same side and it's not people of color against settlers of any descent. It's just let's find some unity and stop hating each other for being people,
Yeah, 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 I
right? Like
agree.
like my father's Afro-Italian descent. I'm like, dude, could you have just come a little bit harder so I had more of your melanin? I make that joke all the time, even though it's terrible. Because it's like I'm an equal mix of settler and like completely colonized descent. and and it's an interesting combo because even other like I can be standing at a bus stop and a woman that has moved to Canada from Africa in this lifetime walks up to me and goes, "Baby, where's your African descent? I know you're light skinned." I'm like, why are you calling me out at a bus stop? But also, thank you. Thank you for
Yeah,
noticing the cheekbones and the
yeah.
lips.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I
And
agree. Yeah.
it's comical because white people go, "Oh, you're light skinned, you're one of us." I go, "Excuse me?"
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Like I like that same seeing same, but you're not seeing this from the right lens.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah, and I know also end of this month is what's the holiday for it? National Truth of, yeah,
Yeah, Truth and Reconciliation
yeah,
Day.
yeah, yeah.
And it's funny because we didn't ask for a holiday, we're asking for equity and equality.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
nothing in that document said give us another stat.
Yeah. And also, it's very recent. They recently passed it.
Yeah,
My question has always been, why now? Why now? Way the heck, way back when?
yeah,
Why
exactly.
now? That's always
Like
been my question.
and especially given that we have always stated that all these things existed. Like we've always known residential
Mm,
schools happened, day schools happened. Like the
mm,
fact that every day an indigenous person is murdered, I think the last statistic was every minute and 47 seconds. This genocide hasn't
mm.
stopped.
Yeah.
I mean, even myself, growing up very high risk, I should be a missing and murdered indigenous woman
Mm,
several times over, especially being trans and the fact that I spent many years in sex work in my youth.
mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Like my clients who know my story because they've read my books or they've read up on me go, Reese, I don't have that much trauma or I don't have that kind. Can I still work with you? Baby, I don't want you to have that kind of trauma.
Yeah.
I don't want you walking in with an entire boatload.
Mm,
I would rather that your worst trauma was like one thing and not 100.
yeah. Yeah.
Because then, like, we can get you to healing faster, and maybe you only have to spend 3 to 6 months with me instead of an entire year weekly.
Hmm. Yeah, 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 I agree. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Yeah, I'm also I paint and I try to add as much meaning as I can to what I
Hmm.
do and what I show and how I express myself. So I've been preparing since the beginning of September, to do something with the red dress for murdered Indigenous women and what else? The medicine wheel and
Hmm.
also to talk about bowling as well. This is such a good conversation. You're gonna have to come back to that.
I definitely
Yeah,
will.
yeah, yeah. Because I've asked people, to talk, but they just don't want to at the moment, which I respect.
Right. See, and I love having deep conversations. I
Yeah.
mean, people will hit me up with that, how are you? How's the weather? And what I actually want to say is, what do you want? Like, can we get to it? Can we even skip the hi and just shoot your question?
Yeah, 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 yeah. I agree. I
Because it's
agree.
like all these things are incredibly traumatic and horrific, but like
Mhm.
you, I lean into art. For the first time in about a decade, I recently did a surrealism piece
Mm,
where I actually painted how I felt about losing a severe portion of my vision.
mm,
And people see that I painted the tears with crimson. It was blood running down the face of the painting.
yeah.
They all went, "Oh, like that looks like that was like pain you're still holding." And I'm like, no, I'm just representing pain that was 11 years ago
Yeah.
so that you guys could actually see how even though people forget that I'm legally blind,
Mm,
that that was hard for me even though I never speak about it.
mhm.
And I don't use my white cane unless I'm in an airport because I don't need an extra target on my back. I already have like this sexy pirate limp on a bad day.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing. What a powerful soul that you are. Thank you. Yeah. When it comes to mental health, here's what I noticed is that obviously it's easier to judge what we see versus what we don't see. Mental health, it's invisible. I try to explain to people and advocate. Just because you don't see something doesn't mean it's not there.
It exactly.
Mhm.
I And from mental health to chronic pain or blindness, there are thousands of invisible illnesses,
Yeah,
and some of them are chronic and lifelong, including mental health when untreated or
yeah,
not properly managed, or even just times of extra hardship. Like,
yeah.
believe me, I am very on top of my own mental health. I still have bad days where I just want to lay in bed and cry.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
It's
I'm
it's
set for life.
exactly, it's being human. Like we all have shit that we're gonna deal with.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, I agree. You're right. Yeah. You're an author. How many books do you have, and when did you write your book? What is it
Oh,
about?
well, I'm about to release my third on October 10th, which is
Yeah.
actually my full methodology, combining my background in high-risk social work with my training in Indigenous medicine,
Mm,
where not only do I explain my approach, but I also dive into the emotions you're going to experience while going through your healing journey, whether it be from trauma or anything else.
mhm,
Cause, but then at the back of the book, I give you over 100 pages of journaling space, and I give you a bunch of activities that you can do so that on your own, if you don't think you're ready to work with someone one on one, or you're not ready to go join a group program, you
mhm,
can dive into it in the comfort of your own like secrecy. Like you
mm,
don't have to go tell everyone your darkest secrets at the starting point. You can dive into it on your own, and when you're ready to talk about it, you can reach out to someone like myself. But
mhm,
I even in the book, I say, reach out to a professional like me or someone of your choosing. Because
mm.
even in the book, it's not a you have to choose Reese. No, go work with whoever you want. If
Yeah.
I'm the weirdo that you want to work through your crap with, then choose me. But if I'm not, like no skin off my back. But the other two, the first one covers the first 3 years of my paralysis recovery from a firsthand perspective.
Mhm,
Like it's the me going through all of the crap and
mm,
giving you the experience of someone that went from a competing athlete to a vegetable overnight, and the experiences and the perspective shifts
mhm.
that caused. Like I even though I was epileptic growing up, and we solved that with the paralysis, or the surgery that caused the paralysis,
Yeah.
I didn't see myself as disabled before I was in a wheelchair.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
And book two really covers all the other trauma of, you know, childhood sexual abuse to teenage sex work
Mhm,
to overcoming it, breaking a cycle of addiction and abuse, and thriving to be able to help others. Which then, while my third book isn't part of the series and it's actually in my name instead of my pen name,
mm.
is really that let me help you heal, even if you can't afford me.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. Oh, I love that. Those are very powerful books for anyone to read. I love that you mentioned journaling at the back of it. I find most books don't have that because I think as we read and we journal, it does something, some type of healing. I can't describe it, but that's good that you have that. That's really
Right?
cool.
Well, and it dropped in like a couple years ago. It was one day you need to actually write out what you've done here so that you can share it with more people. And I was already starting to outline it before I relocated to Vancouver,
Mhm.
but when I got here, it dropped in. And I was like, okay, it is time to take a day off my schedule and just write this damn book.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. When you write, what do you feel? What does it do for you?
When I write, I slip into what any medium of artist call like a deep flow state
Mm,
where like it's very meditative, almost as if you're in a temple, and it just flows. It's like here are all my ideas, and they're just like flying to the screen or the paper. And like there are days where I'm so deep in thought, I can write for 12 hours without taking a break. And then I realize I'm like, oh damn, it's 10 or 12 at night and I'm starving.
Wow, that's awesome. Keeps you busy. That's really
Right?
cool. Yeah.
And like you, like I lean very much into artistic forms
Hmm.
because sometimes it is just about removing it from your body, like putting it outside of yourself.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you don't need to talk it to death or you don't need an extra tool. You just need an outlet. And that's where, like, even going for a jog can be a creative outlet if it's that thing that puts your brain in flow mode
Hmm.
where you can just cognitively process your own thoughts and emotions.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I love arts. I tell people it's not an option that I just sort of do it here and there. It's my life. I don't paint just to paint, or I don't draw just to draw. There are significant meaning, and when I need them, it's therapy.
It exactly. Like when I sit down and paint, it's because an image popped into my head and I felt like this like true emotional attachment to it, and whatever it was in my body generally releases as I put it to paper.
Yeah.
Like I recently actually painted this landscape that was a bunch of like evergreen trees
Hmm.
and then did this golden orange skyline.
Hmm.
And everyone that looks at it, they keep telling me like they just feel like it's a coming home or a new horizon. I'm like, this is why I share my art with other artists. Because like they look at it and they go, oh, this was your exact feeling, I think. And I'm like, well, you don't have to say I think. Like you, because I paint from emotion. I don't paint from, oh, I want to sell this. It's a no, I'm painting this for me.
Yeah. That's amazing. And I think I know, not only think, people heal through our own healing journey.
Yes, and that's why we have to recover out loud
Mm,
because we are lighting the way for anyone that's too afraid to come forward and say, I'm struggling.
yeah.
I I'm hurting inside. Like I'm so alone that I don't know why I'm here.
Mm,
It paves the path for
mm,
those that don't have a voice yet.
yeah, yeah. And I think when people see people like you and me talking, it stirs something in them. It
Right?
helps them realize they're not alone because all
Right.
of us are struggling some way, somehow, no matter how good we look. There's always some kind of shit going on under the
Exactly.
surface.
Exactly. And when people realize that me being like 50% clown and 50% intellectual is not like a coping mechanism, it's just my result of healing. They go, oh my gosh, like I can experience that much joy
Mhm.
even though I experienced decades of what felt like suffrage as I went through it.
Yeah.
They go, Reese, I'm not ready to work with you, but like, can we talk about this? I'm like, yeah, we could talk about this. Like,
Yeah.
like even if you're struggling and you need to reach out to someone,
Mhm.
find me on social media. Shoot me a message.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need an ear to vent.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like they and there's a severe difference between needing to vent and like an actual therapeutic conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm always available for those conversations if I'm awake, even if I don't know you, because
Yeah.
it's just that I can be a beacon of light for you if you need me.
Mm. I know you are for me. Being here right now, this is not a coincidence or accident. Everything happens for a reason because here I am. I'm still learning about the medicine wheel. I didn't know you were going to talk about the medicine wheel, you know?
Right? Like talk about divine timing.
Yeah, it always happens. It happens every time. Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about mindfulness. I don't know if you meditate on that. What do you do to cope and help you?
Oh, I start my day in meditation and
Mm,
I've been actively meditating and mastering my own practice of mindfulness,
Mhm.
like cognitively, since I was 11. Like that's when my mom first put me in therapy because she knew I was broken. And not in an unfixable sense, but just in that I was in pain I couldn't talk about to my family
Mm,
because things that had happened made that an unsafe space.
yeah.
But I start my day in meditation, and whether that's to, soothing nature or
Mhm.
like just rhythmic beats or whatever music is actually fitting my mood, because sometimes you need to just sit in an uncomfortable emotion.
Mhm.
And that is where I love like music therapy and art therapy, because if you can't pinpoint it, I guarantee you can find a genre or feeling or tone of music that
Mhm.
will pinpoint exactly how you feel. Some days it's gonna be your upbeat or your like empowering hip hop, and other days it's gonna be like your angry divorced dad rock. And sometimes I need
Yeah.
3 hours in the morning with my divorced dad rock
Mm.
and a phone call with my best friend before I take meetings for the day.
Yeah, yeah,
Or it's
yeah.
that girl, I slept great, but damn, I woke up bitchy today.
Mm. Yep. I've had those days where I'm like,
Right?
I wish I could control my brain most of the time.
Well,
That's what's so
exactly.
hard.
And that's where I love techniques that, like, while I don't practice it myself, I use it in my own practice of anchor point hypnosis,
Mm.
where you get a professional that's trained in hypnosis to make you this custom meditation, and
Mhm.
then like you touch a point on your body, and you're basically giving it a special neural pathway to when you hold that point lightly, it
Mhm.
will bring you back to that same state of that meditation. And while you have to redo it every once in a while,
Mhm.
like that is my favorite cheat. It's like a cheat code in a game. I touch two fingers together for 10 seconds, and suddenly I'm back in complete bliss, as if I've completely made it in life and nothing is wrong.
Mm.
And well, yes, like other meditation, or even just focusing on your breathing without forcing yourself to do like rhythmic breathing, just focus
Mhm.
on the breath itself,
Yeah.
is incredibly powerful to just say, oh, hey, I'm actually here in this moment, and I'm not worried about the future or stuck in the past,
Mm.
because I'm
I
just
love that.
right here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's how I've been living my life, after my diagnosis.
Hmm.
When you have a kiss with death, you
Hmm.
know, you change. Not
Well,
because it's not good to do, you just do it.
exactly. Like I was a super anxious kid. Like so anxious I could not sleep. After all of the trauma and really countless moments where I should have died,
Mm.
life isn't scary. I'm like, no, I've been this close to death so many times
Mhm.
that it's not that like I sit in that, oh, everything is fearful or terrible. It's that nothing in the moment really has the magnitude to be like, okay, this is the end of the world. Oh.
Yeah, yeah,
And that is also the help of a now fully developed prefrontal cortex. There is now emotional regulation,
yeah.
and even just the stance of, okay,
Mm.
I'm grown up, I've experienced all these things. It's never gonna be that bad ever again.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I even if a man ever tried to hurt me in that way again, I
Mhm.
don't even have the trauma responses anymore. I would use the 10 years of martial arts training to save myself. Like I did in those moments as well. Like
Mhm.
if I look back on it, you know who's always had my back? It was me. I'm actually what kept me safe the entire time.
Yeah, yeah.
So why would I sit here being afraid of the world when I've already survived all of my hardest moments?
Mm,
Like, why? Yes, being happy is not always easy moment to moment, but
mhm.
we get to choose our reality today.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, I love that. So powerful. Yeah. Yeah, I think once you experience everything there is to experience, you just live in bliss. And people don't always understand it.
Exactly.
And I can't
Like,
always explain it.
people ask me all the time, like, are you naturally this blissy after all that trauma? I go, yeah, it's called healing. Whoever
Yeah.
told you that you have to suffer for the rest of your life, even
Yeah.
though you did therapy, was
Hmm.
not qualified to be your therapist.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm not a therapist, but background working high risk with front lines
Mm,
and like my background in traditional indigenous medicine, it's a great healing modality from a coaching angle of let's get to the root cause because I don't want to see you suffer forever.
mm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So the medicine will, do you um do coaching with it and to help
I,
clients?
I really do follow it in a big portion, especially working with other people of color. Like because
Mm,
we get it. We are generally more so looking for those tribal roots. And that is where, depending on the client and depending on how their body responds to things, we
mhm,
will actually have to suss out like other herbology. Because that, let me actually go do the research and find out with your genetic background what might better improve that symptom than what we would traditionally use here in North America, because that's where more of my gene pool lies, and like from what we found is more effective in healing Reese, but that might not be better in healing you, which I would deep dive and do that research because again, it's about your healing, not mine.
yeah,
I've
yeah.
already done my work. It's time to do yours, honey.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think looking at the medicine wheel, I got everything I needed to know. And I
Yeah.
started painting the eagle. I also write poetry, nothing fancy or professional. Um, I use visualization
Mm-hmm.
just to write.
And
I
see,
don't
and I
know.
love that because using visualization to write means that you're actually or exploring your own subconscious.
Yeah.
And that is where 95% of our beliefs, our thoughts, our actions, and all of our habits actually lie. And that's where I truly rely on all these techniques
Mhm.
that lead us to our subconscious mind.
Yeah.
Because I don't care about the 5% of your conscious mind. It's probably just like a giggling idiot. No offense.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's not the intelligent part of our minds.
Yeah, 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 that's true. Yeah, and there's so much I think some myths or fears that may have been passed on when it comes to the subconscious mind. People think, "Ooh, it's dark. There's bad stuff there." And I'm like, "No, that's actually the most beautiful part."
It's exactly like that's where all the liquid gold is. And even folks that are afraid of hypnotism, it's all self.
Yeah.
No one can actually go inside your mind despite those
Mhm.
psychological thrillers.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
no, they don't tap you. You tap yourself.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Like that they're leading a visualization and their specific choice of words might help you get there. But
Hmm.
even I could lead you through a meditation that made you feel hypnotized into an altered state
Hmm.
without it actually being hypnotism. It's just
Hmm.
getting you to a state where you can comfortably explore the uncomfortable feelings and states of your own mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when you come out of it, like supporting you through that process. Like I try to convince clients when they do that work with me to only explore like one target issue at a time.
Mm-hmm.
which generally they're only in that altered state for upwards of like 10, 15 minutes. But then the rest of that hour, it's how can I support you? How can we dissect this? Like, how
Mm-hmm.
can I help you move through this in a way where you don't spiral for the next 72 hours and freak out like, oh my gosh, I realized this one root and now I see how it affected my whole life and I'm having a crisis. That's not what we want. We want you to be able to manage it. And that's truly why I follow more of a coaching model. Because it's not that like, oh, I'm a certified life coach that took a weekend course. No, service professional, thank you.
Yeah.
Um, but it's that let me support you through it and actually hold your hand.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
And even when I was frontlines, like breaking the rules of letting a distraught teenager give me a hug and cry on my shoulders.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We are human. We need connection.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I'm in Calgary and you and I grab coffee and you need to cry on my shoulders, I'm just gonna say, honey, come here.
Yeah. 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 I love
It's
that.
because it's just that human to human connection. And so
Mm-hmm.
many adults, because of their trauma, they're so afraid of it.
Mm-hmm.
To feel that rawness or to let you cry on my shoulder and just hold that in a box in front of me. Like I'm not taking on your pain. I'm just allowing it to be there for a moment so that it can be like, let's say, released to the universe.
Yeah. Mm. I love that. So beautiful.
It's also incredibly corny and makes me sound like a hippie, but whatever.
Hippie. That's what makes you you, and never change that. Yeah, yeah. I think all of us are weird in some way.
Well, exactly. Like welcome to 50 Shades of Strange with Reese.
That's awesome. Yeah, yeah. So, Reese, as we wrap up, is there anything else that's on your heart that you'd like to share that we didn't get to cover?
Honestly, just never give up.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're reaching out to a professional like myself and it's just a, hey, I need an ear. I like don't ever give up. If you think that you can't talk to a friend or a family member or someone close to you, reach out to one of us because I promise we will listen. We
Mm-hmm.
will take the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah,
Yes, I'm not generally conscious after 11 p.m. Pacific, but before those hours, you're golden.
yeah, yeah. Well, me by 9 p.m., I'm out by
Yeah.
8:30. Yeah, yeah.
But that's like don't ever give up because you're loved more than you feel
Mm,
and your life matters even in your darkest moments.
yeah.
Like there is so much more to life than your struggle.
Mm-hmm.
So please don't ever hesitate. We
Yeah.
have resources. I can give you tools.
Mm-hmm.
I can even just give you tools in a 2 minute voice note
Yeah.
after you're done venting and you need to start like surviving better.
Yeah, 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 I agree. I love that. I have two questions for you as we wrap up. The first one is, what is the meaning of life for you?
Oh, I mean, if I was being philosophical, I would say there's no meaning to life.
Mm,
It's the meaning that you give life that matters. It's
mhm,
finding what makes your heart or your soul like sing.
mhm,
Like your the essence of your being just glow. Like and no matter whether it makes you rich or whether it just helps you get by, you need to find what brings you joy, even if you have a job you hate and your joy is a hobby.
mhm,
Find your joy and lean into it as much as you can because in focusing in on your strengths,
mhm.
you're going to casually work on the things that you're less good at. But you're not going to sit there angrily at the world. Oh, I suck at algebra, so I'm gonna
I
hate my
do.
life. Like
Yeah,
I I'm
yeah,
I'm I'm good at algebra, but I still work in, the human sector of helping people.
yeah,
And it's
yeah.
find your passion in life and just go with it.
Hmm, hmm. Yeah, yeah, I love that. Where can people buy your books? And if they want to work with you, get in touch with you, how can they do that?
You can find me on all forms of social media under the tag of Trauma to Bliss. Even on Facebook, it will link you to my personal profile.
Mhm,
But add me, send me a message, like connect. But also traumatobliss.ca and all of my books, both under my pen name of Addison DeMarco and
mhm,
my new title, are all on Amazon. The books under my pen name can also be found at Kohl's, Chapters, Barnes and Noble,
mhm.
and Walmart.
That's awesome. Awesome, awesome. Well, Reese, thank you so much for showing up for me, for you, and for so many powerful warriors that are going to be watching this. Maybe it's going to be tomorrow, next year, but I believe now will always be now. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me and really letting me foster a discussion of just
Yeah,
focusing on everyone's healing instead of our struggle,
yeah, yeah.
because together we can do it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.